Hi everyone, my name is Leanne and today I am bringing you a video that I am so excited about. I start every video recently by saying that we are in the midst of the Irish Readathon, but you know, we are, and if you don't know what that is, I will leave my announcement video linked in all the various places. Today I wanted to talk to you about my favourite Irish author, but also possibly just my favourite author of all time. It is Louise O'Neill. I have loved every single one of her books. Whenever she brings out a new book, it will always be like my most anticipated release for that year, and I will read it instantly. Louise has written 5 novels. I'm going to be talking about all of these books in this video and drawing on some of the common themes and influences that I've picked up from her books and talking a little bit about why I love her books so much. A lot of Louise's books look at really hard-hitting themes. They do look at a lot of feminist issues. They look at what it is like to be a woman, specifically a woman in Ireland. They look at imbalances in power dynamics, particularly in romantic relationships. And through all of her books, Louise has managed to articulate things that I've never been able to myself. Experiences and emotions that I've had that I've never been able to put into words. I think young Irish writers, particularly young Irish female writers, have been producing some of the most phenomenal fiction in the past few years. Fiction that is enjoyed by both people who are on the more literary end of their reading taste, but also readers of very commercial fiction as well. If you've enjoyed novels by Sally Rooney or Emer McBride, then I think you would really enjoy Louise's novels as well. And on the young adult side, if you are someone who has read a lot of Holly Bourne or maybe Juno Dawson, I think you would also really enjoy Louise's young adult books, but also her books for grown-ups as well, if you are looking to kind of bridge that in your reading tastes. Louise is from Clonakilty in County Cork, and I think you can really see that Irish influence in everything that she writes, whether she is dealing with Irishness directly or indirectly. I think it's always there. Throughout history, Irish writing has tended to exhibit a real self-reflective awareness that consistently examines its own history and representations of the past. There is a lot of Irish trauma that we are still dealing with as a nation, but there is also so much individual trauma, like we see faced by Emma in Asking for It. In this novel, we follow 18-year-old Emma grappling with her physical and psychological trauma in the aftermath of her being raped, and images of that being circulated online. I am going to be going into that experience a little bit more in the next few minutes, so if that's something that you don't want to hear about, please skip to the end of me talking about this book. I'll be lifting up the next book when I'm finished talking about this one. Victim blaming is something that is experienced by victims of assault all over the globe. But there is something about Emma's experience that is distinctly Irish. Emma's multiple attackers have this kind of celebrity status that exists in small town Ireland. Her attackers are players on the local GAA team, and they hold such a status in this small town. In one shocking moment in the novel, her attackers are publicly supported by the parish priest. And the parish priest is someone that historically throughout Ireland and still to the present day is a real influence in these kinds of communities. The influence of the Catholic Church in Ireland is something that is continuously examined by Irish writers. And while the Irishness isn't immediately obvious in some of Louise's more genre-based fiction, it is certainly there. Only Ever Yours is a YA novel that is dystopian science fiction, and it is often billed as The Handmaid's Tale meets Mean Girls, and you can definitely see the influence of The Handmaid's Tale on a book like this. This is a book that is about the control and restriction on young women's bodies. It is about young women being influenced and raised in such a way that they will become perfect subjects of the patriarchy. It's unsurprising that a book like this with such considerations and themes comes from an Irish writer. Ireland being a country that has so long restricted women's bodily autonomy, a country that only in very recent history legalized abortion, and making that process accessible to women is something that is still ongoing. Bodily autonomy and religion is something that is considered so frequently throughout the legacy of Irish women's writing. And in her novels, we see her exploring that societal power imbalance, but also intimate individual power imbalances between two people. We see it in Almost Love as we take a look at the controlling and manipulative and toxic relationship between a young woman named Sarah and a much older man named Matthew. Louise explores sexual dysfunction and power imbalances in a painfully truthful manner. And as a reader, I could see how Sarah was really traumatized by her experiences and how that made her behave in ways that reflected negatively on her. There were so many things that she did in this book that I didn't agree with, that I didn't approve of. But I also saw so much of myself reflected in her. There were so many moments in this book that made me feel so uncomfortable as a reader, because I could see Sarah making these terrible decisions. I could see her behaving in a way where she was so obviously craving this man's approval, and I saw myself in it. There are some sections of text messages in this book that particularly resonated with me and made me feel those uncomfortable feelings of self-reflection, but they are some of the most powerful scenes in this book. And I think any reader who has been in a situation in any way similar to that, where there is a romantic relationship with such power imbalances, I think this would really resonate with you. And we see the same thing in After the Silence. This is her most recent novel. While this is a thriller novel, it follows documentary filmmakers going back to a small Irish island where a tragedy happened many years previously that resulted in a young woman being killed, and that murder never being solved. At its core, this book is really about domestic abuse and power imbalances, and how little by little men can weave control over women. Women who seem like they are strong and powerful, that they are feminist, that they are aware of things like domestic abuse. How when it happens to them, they can't seem to see it for what it is. And something that I think is hugely important to the context of this book is that divorce wasn't legalised in Ireland until 1995, the year I was born. And divorce was legalised by the most narrow of margins. It was only 50.3% in favour. Women and men who were in domestic abuse situations could not leave. They could not get divorced. It was bad. And the kind of obsessive love that we see in both of these books is something that we also see in The Surface Breaks. This is a feminist retelling of The Little Mermaid. This subverts the original Hans Christian Andersen story and looks at contemporary misogyny and sexism. And this book is really a part of a legacy of so many books that we have been seeing in recent years that take stories from history, whether it's fairy tale or myth, and refocuses the narrative to bring out these kind of feminist themes in them. The Irish influence in The Surface Breaks is also beautifully woven in terms of the name and the setting. The mermaids have beautiful Irish names. A fascination with the sea shines through in this book, and despite it being a fantasy setting, you can so clearly see how this is the west coast of Ireland. And the power of that setting is something that we can see in After the Silence as well. The circumstances that this murder took place in exists because of a huge storm where this island is cut off from the mainland. All of Louise's books resonated with me so much. Her writing communicates so many uncomfortable truths about the modern world, both on a widespread societal scale, but also on a very intimate and personal level. I hope I've been able to encourage you to pick up one of Louise's books if you haven't already. I know other people who have enjoyed her work have enjoyed it to varying degrees and have some books that they prefer more than others, but for me, I just love all of them so much. If I absolutely had to pick a favourite, I would probably choose Asking for It. It was a book that was hugely influential to me every time that I have read it. I marked it up so much when I read this as a student, and it was something that really influenced my own writing and my own interests. But I really do just love all of her books. If you want to find out more about them, they will all be linked down below in the description. I hope you've been having a wonderful reading month. Do leave me a comment down below and let me know if you've read any of these books, which is your favourite Louise O'Neill book if you are someone who has read quite a few of them. I'd love to have a chat with you guys down in the comments. I hope you're doing well, and I will speak to you in my next video.